Hey everyone, welcome back. Just like last time, I want to get through a couple things before we get into the video in earnest. So a couple of you last week pointed out some info that actually I forgot to mention in the video. So Shagrat65 mentioned that the Beastmen have had updates to their Steam DB account pretty much since the start of the year. Now there's a bit of an asterisk on their statement. Almost every DLC continuously gets an update at least once a week or so, but that's actually from Steam itself. It's just updating the account numbers for each individual thing. The Beastmen still do have stuff over and above that, unlike most others. For example, on July 30th, they received a whopping 10 updates in a row. Stuff like that is, of course, not just Steam updating their actual piece of data. That's CA getting in there and actually physically changing stuff, and you can see that in the notes for each thing. Matthew Lingard also pointed out that I forgot to bring it up. CA in their Twitch stream way back at the start of the year did say that the Beastmen are getting a new Nagarathi start position, and in fact, ironically, that statement came just before they were talking about doing a Wood Elf rework at some point. Yeah, so I mean, every sign points to the Beastmen being the next thing after the Wood Elves. It's just kind of an open and shut thing in my eyes. The second thing I want to bring up, a few of you now have asked me for my mod list, and unfortunately, Kadrin's mod manager doesn't make it particularly easy for me to export that. However, what I'm going to do, and it won't be ready for this video, I am going to put together a Steam pack of all the mods that I use. There's about 120 of them, and I always maintain compatibility for everything. So if you download that mod pack, it'll have the exact list I use, and there's no hiccups in there, and when something does start to act up, I'll just take it out of that list. With that said, let's get into it right now. So last week we did bring up the two recent leaks and what those might hypothetically mean. I did want to throw the speculative stuff and the actual stuff into the same video, so today we're going to take a look at the more sort of guesswork side of the equation, including what this might potentially mean regarding the pre-order bonus. So get comfy, drink some milk, and let's hop right into it.
Wow.
So there's a link to last week's video in case you missed it, but basically the short version is there was 2 leaks in the last month that have some interesting implications. We won't discuss a lot of that here, but one of the things that was brought up since the Shadow and the Blade, every legendary lord out of the game has had new diplomacy lines for the Beastmen and Warriors of Chaos, a fact not shared with all the previous legendary lords. At the end of July, we got news that CA would be including would be launching Total Warhammer Savage Edition, which combined Game 1 as well as the Warriors of Chaos and the Beastmen rosters. Needless to say, the timing of this had some pretty interesting implications. As I said in the previous video, it's almost assured that the Beastmen and or Warriors of Chaos have something coming down the road. It's also interesting what those two have in common. They're both the only dedicated Horde factions in the game. Could the new thing coming down the line be a massive rework to the Horde mechanics, which would both put them in the Vortex map at the same time? Another obvious possibility is the new Legendary Lords option, which would appeal to the Beastmen, especially given the Nagarathi start position teased from CA on their stream earlier this year. I've also seen a couple folks suggest that this means we're looking at a Wood Elves versus Beastmen pack for the next DLC. I'm distinctly less sold on that last theory though because of a single weird detail about how these new diplomacy options work. See, other Legendary Lords have referenced either the Beastmen or the Warriors of Chaos individually in the past, as in the Beastmen would have a set of dialogue options, or the Warrior Chaos would have a set of options, or both of them as individuals would have options. Combining the two of them like this is kind of a unique trick to this particular set. However, that means unless the Lord Pack contains both Beastmen and Warriors, which is exceedingly unlikely, that would entail basically 3 reworks in one pack, it's unlikely to contain one, even with the possibility of a free LC Lord for the other. As I said in a previous video, Beastmen versus Dark Elves would be the logical leap to make there. Another tiny, remote possibility would be an entirely new chaotic faction who makes sense with the referenced dialogue options, not unlike Norska. I wonder which faction could use lines referencing demons, chaos things, and foul beasts. Maybe, like, say, the Demons of Chaos? While I would be the first person to call this a stretch, think about it. Every single pre-order bonus in the past has been a chaotic faction. For Game 1 it was the Warriors of Chaos, and for Game 2 it was Norska. Demons are the only remaining chaotic faction left. The pre-order bonus needs to make sense both into the game it's going into and for the game and getting the actual pre-order bonus itself. See Norska being useful in Game 1 and 2. Demons could very easily pop into Game 2, and even in the Vortex campaign at that, and they're a glaringly obvious fit for Game 3. The Demons of Chaos are arguably the easiest out of all the Game 3 factions to move into Game 2, given that most of their lineup already exists in the game in the form of the Warriors of Chaos, Beastmen, and Norska. Again, am I going to say that the pre-order bonus is assuredly the Demons of Chaos? Hell no, it'd be a ridiculous statement to make. But the more I've considered this, the more sense it has begun to make in my head. With the sole possible exception of the Dogs of War, virtually every other pre-order bonus race has more issues. Kislev, Chaos Dwarves, Ogre Kingdoms, Cathay, In, and Koresh makes sense in the Far East, but none of them have any business being in the New World. Araby, Amazons, and Albion make sense in the New World, but then they have the opposite issue. They don't make any sense in the Game 3 map. Not only do the demons make sense in the New World, gunning for the Vortex no less, but making them a pre-order bonus also solves yet another issue I've seen posted. The fact that Game 3 core factions are effectively almost all evil factions. The only 3 8th edition armies left for the New World are the Ogre Kingdoms, Chaos Dwarves, and Demons of Chaos, with the potential for Kislev depending on how quickly Games Workshop gets the update out for them. This optimistically means we are looking at 3 evil factions to potentially 1 good faction. Moving the demons to a pre-order bonus, however, means we now have 2 evil factions to potentially 1 good factions. Substitute in Cathay or the Dogs of War, and suddenly you've got your balanced good and evil core factions that we've had in the previous 2 games. While CA has never explicitly stated that this was a hard, fast rule, I definitely think that the balanced approach was always a soft rule from a design perspective, as it helps ensure good or evil factions can't just steamroll through their opposition. We'll take a look at the pre-order bonus possibilities more next week, but understand that since this leak came out, the demons have nudged out a few other picks for who'd I consider to be most likely. Alright, enough about the darn demons, bring it on back, you say. Alright, fine then, let's get back to the leaks and let's move back to the Beastmen again and take another look at the other leak from last month. The fact that Troy has Manslime and Morslime in its game files when Total Warhammer 2 itself does not. As I said last week, I would love if this meant a huge rework to nighttime battles and the like, but I genuinely do not get that impression. It's weird that they're in Troy, I agree, but again, I think this was more from a temporary basis during development than anything else. There was one theory I've seen touted about on the forums a couple times that I really want to address first though. The possibility that CA Sophia, the ones that were working on Total War Troy, are now working on Total Warhammer content since Troy is now out and in the wild. This is completely 100% wrong. There is zero chance that they are working on anything else but Troidal War content now. Troy being free on Epic gave CA a huge market for the base game, but now they need to start making actual money on content sales. And we already know that post-game content was a consideration from the start because it's something CA addressed in the announcement for that game itself. So these moons being in Troy means absolutely nothing for Total Warhammer from CA Sophia's perspective to me. Now, that said, the moons being in Troy could still mean something for Total Warhammer, and I'll break up these into 3 possibilities. An update to the skybox, an update regarding the moons themselves, and an update regarding the beastmen, demons, and or vampires. We'll start with the first possibility, an update regarding the skybox. Some players are super into this, and I've seen people hype themselves up to silly levels about this. Listen, if this ends up coming to the game, there's not going to be torch-carrying units or captains with lanterns or anything like that. They're just going to use the same glow effect as what the underground battles already have on infantry. For what it's worth, this isn't something that interests me in the slightest, as there's already mods that do this exact thing brilliantly. The second possibility is an update regarding the moons themselves from a campaign map perspective. As it stands, the game is eternally set during the day, and the moons being looked at, updated, and rendered at 4K might imply that they play a little bit more pronounced of a role in the single player going forward. While the von Karsteins are renowned for being able to walk in the sun, they are considered a rarity in the vampire world. Only a few of the Lamians and Necrarchs, for example, have mastered the sheer force of will required to survive in the sun, and literally none of the Strigoi, Blood Dragons, or lesser lines are known to be able to do so. So it's a little weird whenever you see the vampire lords cruising all over bright sunny days without a care in the world, because it's fairly antithetical to the lore. Adding in the moons and nighttime would be a far more reasonable way to view those particular campaigns, for example. Which I suppose brings us to our next point, an update regarding the effects of the moon on various races. We've already mentioned the vampires, but again, they should be focused not just on nighttime, but even which moons are out. For example, Morslime affects the vampire's ability to summon more magically intensive units, such as the Abyssal Terrors, and the strength of vampires is improved under Morslime's glow. The demons are actually a little bit more interesting in their interactions with Morslime, because the Chaos Moon is what allows the Winds of Magic to be whipped up enough to allow the demons to actually invade the south. As demons cannot exist in the material realm without considerable Winds of Magic to sustain themselves, this makes Morslab's presence in the night sky a literal lifeblood for demonic units. When Morslime wanes, the Winds of Magic often leave with it, and without magic to sustain themselves, the demons crumble away to nothingness in short order. The Beastmen, in comparison to the previous 2, however, are extremely well known to interact with Morslime. It's positioned as one of the core tenets of their culture. Many other shamanistic rituals require Morrslive to be in full in the night sky, and Bray herds are known to gain increased resolve and barbarity when the Chaos Moon hangs high overhead. Of every race, the Beastmen have the most to gain with Morrslive's presence and the most to lose with its absence. But honestly, pretty much every race has an interaction with Morrslive. Skaven worship it as a gift from the Horned Rat and are known to form Vermintides during full moons. Lizardmen have tried destroying it on multiple occasions, and it's known to interfere with their divination abilities. Empire citizens are known to hide their children.
Y'all need to hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband because they raping everybody out here.
From its sickly moonlight, believing it to be an omen to mutation. Chaos cults increase their rituals and save the more complex ones until Morrslive stands overhead. Norskins call it the Black Moon and believe it to be the bringer of life. There's a reason to keep track of an ongoing Morrslive schedule for every race, and if CA wanted to introduce new features, it would be a great one to add. Imagine Morrslive's presence could dramatically improve some races while heavily punishing others, all while affecting the winds of magic. You'd have this whole other factor to contribute to a back and forth power struggle that could be an incredible addition to the campaign experience. As amazing as that would be though, I think the far more probable justification for it being potentially worked on, if it has any reason for it to be in the games themselves, is likely tied into the Beastmen update we can now likely assume is coming. As mentioned, the Chaos Moon plays a critical role in Beastmen culture, and CA has already had it as one of the core fixtures of the Beastmen campaign in the first go-around. Fleshing out its role even further could make their campaign more unique and interesting. Demons are, again, another potential reason to improve it, but I'm far less inclined to say the moon would have anything to do with them in comparison to their beastie kin. But that's it for my rampant speculation. So what did you think? Anything you liked? Anything you disagreed with? Let me know down below, and as always, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.